Bonjour, peeps. That's Potawatomi. Hello, bonjour, peeps. Peeps are the people who are in Star Nation's community and who join us for the live streams. We appreciate it. I appreciate it. Today is Saturday, August 4th, 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Usually we do the live streams in the morning. So whenever, whenever I do one in the afternoon, I've had some stuff going on in the morning. That I'm not able to do the live stream in the morning. So I push it back to 2 p.m. and this is just a really good time in general in the afternoon. Right in the middle of the afternoon. That's 2 p.m. Central Time. So welcome for those who are watching live and those who'll be watching the recorded video. We certainly do appreciate it. You are watching a live stream on Star Nation's organization's main fan page, and I call it the Card Draw of the Day Energy live stream. There are some regulars who are on with me during the day that teasingly, jokingly call it Neshi's non-show, because I haven't really actually named this segment for Star Nation's radio network. I just decided in May it was that maybe the community members here at Star Nations would like to know a little bit about the backstory of the card draw that I do every morning. And so we started doing the live streams. I do post to Instagram, our business account, a quote from the information. And so I still do that, but we added the live stream onto it. And so, hey, Stephanie, good afternoon. Good afternoon to you. And Mary Anderson Fry, hello. I'm so glad you ladies are with me. Good afternoon, right? Not good morning. And I do have caffeine, even if it's in the afternoon. This is iced tea. Yep. So, I pushed the live stream back to the afternoon because we had a very busy morning. Paul, it was a rough night for him last night, a lot of pain. And so I ended up taking him into the ER again. I guess it was about 5 a.m. our time. And some of the staff there are starting to get to know us, some of the nursing staff. So anyway, he, with all kinds of tests again, they did, the x-ray showed that he now has pleurisy. Yeah, pleurisy. And which is very painful. That was the pain. And there's really nothing you can do for it other than to wait it out. And so I asked the doctor about, is this, because I've had pneumonia before and I've never had pleurisy along with it. And he says, oh, this sometimes comes with overdoing it, not taking it easy, not listening to your body kind of thing. And so, So now we have a prime example of when you think that you're doing okay and you overdo it and you get yourself even more tired. And, the thing is that most of us do understand that, but we keep pushing past that point, right? Yeah. For people who are ill, that is not a good thing. And even with people who are healthy, it's probably not a good thing. And so we're learning a lesson here. But right now, in this moment, everything is good. So far, his pain level is tolerable, more than tolerable. Hey, David Sturkin just joined us. CAD, so good to have you in the chat. And so right in this moment, everything is good. Both Mom and Paul had lunch. Both of them have their medications for pain. Both are in a comfortable chair watching television in this moment, and one's watching sports and one's watching a movie. My mom is the one watching sports and Paul is the one watching a movie. I think that's hilarious. And so I thought I'm so glad I pushed the live stream out to 2 p.m. So that I could have a little bit of a break from that and come up and talk about some spiritual stuff and have maybe a little fun with you guys. And so I appreciate you being here. I really, really do. So today's card draw, I think you're going to find very interesting because, in the card deck that we're using, for those who are just joining us, we're using the Sacred Geometry Oracle deck by Francine Hart. Francine published this in 2001, and I believe I bought it in like 2002 or somewhere in there. It was the very first and only sacred geometry card deck at the time. Now, there's probably others out there. I just haven't looked at them. And so, yeah, I like this one. I really do. It brings back good memories because it was during a time frame of my learning, my delve into sacred geometry in the early days, and yeah, and so it's good memories for me. So in this card draw, I was using only one card during the day for a day, and then we would talk about that, right? And with this particular deck, we do 2 card draws because the first card represents the right side, which is the male and thought. Yeah, that portion of us, right? Our energy. And the second draw represents the feminine energy and intuition. And so with those 2 cards, it balances the male-female energies. And so we can sense the energy from the cards, the message from the cards in a whole WHOLE way. And so that we receive the information in its completeness, in the balance of those energies. Okay, so the first card that came to me was this one, and it's called Mandala. Mandala. Yeah, I like the colors on here. You know, and in these days, and we'll call it modern times, modern compared to 2001. So many more people have recognized this word, mandala. They recognize the definition of a mandala. It's more a part of what we might call mainstream or mass consciousness. Once it reaches mass consciousness, it's where we see it a lot in everyday life. It's includes the collective consciousness, but it is reaching the population who may or may not be fully awake, right? Yeah. And so you might actually see things like this on television, like HGTV or something. You know, they might have a showing artwork that they're using for interior decoration or something, and they'll be using a mandala. So that's how we get to see it or sense it in everyday life with mass consciousness. Now, here is what Francine says about the mandala. She calls it the sacred round. The sacred round. Yeah, my camera is trying to focus on it. Let's see. We'll pull it back a little bit. There we go. A little bit more focus. Mandala is a Sanskrit word meaning circle or center. Mandalas are outward expressions of internal processes and can be viewed passively as a centering device, such as in meditation. They may also be created by individuals as a means of communicating with one's center, your own center, and initiating healing and transformation. And so for those that are in the chat, have you experienced a class maybe on drawing mandalas? Or possibly, you know, there's coloring books out now. I've got actually 2 of them. I should have brought them with me, of mandalas. You can print them off from a website now. You can go out on the internet, search mandalas or coloring mandalas or something like that, and there you can actually get free patterns to color. Okay. And you can do all kinds of stuff with them. You can use colored pencils. You can use, you know, paint. You can use all kinds of medium when you're doing a mandala. In Tibet, have you ever seen the sand painting of a mandala. Those are gorgeous, gorgeous. And what happens when they're done is the monks literally mess it up and let the wind take the sand. And because then the prayers go with the sand, right? Yeah. And so Mary's saying, no, she has not had a class like that. Well, there are many, many artists in Star Nation community who have worked with mandalas, and there's some people who are actually offering classes for that. And one of the things that you can do, Mary, is you could just sit down and actually draw your own mandala. What they say is to have your sketch pad, your paper, your pencil, whatever it is, and take a few deep breaths, get connected to Grandmother Earth, Grandfather Sky, make sure you're grounded, right, and centered, and to be able to sit down and draw a circle. And then what you do is you draw, and it could be geometrical. You could do that too. It could be flowers. It could be almost anything. And what you're doing is that it's like a snapshot of where you're at energetically in that drawing. Yeah. And so they're saying that there's no, is not, let's say how to correctly phrase this, is not to limit yourself, right? And not to edit it in your own mind, but just to draw it. Yeah. Stephanie's saying, I used to see them a lot when I meditated in the bath before my son was born. Oh, you bet, you know? And if you just remember back, think back, Stephanie, of bring one of them to your memory and really take a look at it and sense it. Because there was probably information in that mandala that came to you, right? And some people would even say that those mandalas have light language in them. And, you know, some mandalas come from more ancient times. We see them within the sacred geometry world. They're thousands of years old, and they carry a potent energy with them for a lot of reasons. One is that they were drawn usually by what we would call a holy person, a medicine person of one kind of culture or another, usually Tibetan or Chinese. Because they're the first ones that had written things down, and so they kind of get the credit for the historical part of it. But those mandalas that are ancient, they carry the original energy with them, but they have been around for so long and studied or used by millions of people, and so you have all of that energy layered upon it. That's what makes them potent. That what makes them still relevant today. Those kind of mandalas, the sacred round, as they're called. Francine writes that you are invited to consider your life as inherently whole and healthy. If there are desperate energies at work, pull them into your sacred center and view them as parts of your whole. They are integral elements, but only part of your story. And she goes on to say that you can create your own mandala, and it will represent a moment in your life and reveal insights from your unconscious that you may not have been considering consciously. So, and it is a snapshot of your current life right now if you would do that drawing. Yeah. And sometimes, life sometimes can pull you off center. It's usually when there's life lessons going on. It's usually when you get soul growth happening, right? Is when you're pulled off center. And in those times, the mandalas can be a helpful tool. You can actually get books that have mandalas in them, and you can use them to meditate with. You can actually get pictures. You know, there's calendars that have mandalas on them. And so they're a tool to help us to come back to the center, come back to being grounded and centered. It's a tool, and they're a beautiful tool. I have a friend of mine. She lives in St. Louis, and she's an artist, and that's how she used to teach mandala classes. I don't know if she is anymore. I see that she's doing other kinds of artwork. But I remember when she was talking about the importance of art in mandalas, that it actually, much like the drum, is in our DNA, because mandalas are ancient. They go back thousands of years. And so, depending on what your lineage is and where your first earth people originated, you may have a tendency to like or love mandalas, because it's in your DNA, it's in your blood and bones. You're at a soul level, you recognize it, you feel the energy of them, and so you get to connect to it, right? So part of today's energy flow that is important for us to know about is the essence and the meaning behind the use of a mandala. Yeah. So the center is kind of like our heart. That's what I think of when they say when you're studying a mandala or you're meditating with a mandala. The center is represents our heart, and so when we turn our attention to the center, it helps us energetically, physically, and emotionally come back to center. Yeah, I like it. I do. I like mandalas. I like drawing them too. I haven't done it in a long while, but I remember when one of our live stream, or it was internet radio at the time, we did a show on Spirit of Color about adult coloring books. And it was probably about 3 years ago or so. And at that time, adult coloring books was just hitting, maybe it was 4 years ago, hitting a peak. And in the mass consciousness, because I remember walking into, was it Hobby Lobby, or maybe it was Michael's? I think it was Michael's. And they had adult coloring books on display. And of course, the kind of things that you can use to color with as part of that display. And I remember standing there thinking, oh my goodness, this is hit, because one of them was mandalas. But it has, it's actually in the mass consciousness now. And so, of course, I bought a couple of the books. You can get them on Amazon.com too. I think I got one from Amazon.com when we were doing that show, because it was about nature, flowers and vines and things like that, for a coloring book. And so yeah, you can also get them on Amazon.com. So this card was the first card that was drawn, and so that goes on the right side of the card draw, which is the male and mental aspects. So we can turn our understanding to the more logical use of mandalas. We can kind of wrap our mental mind around it, right? And so they have, and that's why it's put on the right side, because it's a tool. It's an energy that we can use for today. On the left side, the female side, which is in intuition and feelings. This is the card that came. Himalayan Passage. Himalayan Passage. Look at this picture. There's so much going on in it. So much. When I was reading through the information on this card, you can kind of see they almost look like triangles, right? At least the tops of the triangles. You can see those. Let's see if I can help you a little bit. So this triangle, and there's one here, and then one here, and then one here, right? Those represent all of our bodies: the mental, the emotional, the physical, the spiritual bodies. Himalayan Passage. It's about rebirth. It's about rebirth. I lost my page for it. I pulled the card out. Hang on just a second. Here it is. So that card is about rebirth. And this is what Francine says about this card. She says, certain times and occurrences within each of our lives transform that life forever. Sometimes they occur in quiet moments. Sometimes they happen as a result of challenging or traumatic events. This card explores your connection to each event, asking you to take a fresh look at how they may have influenced what is presently transpiring in your life. Within the triangles are the four mountains of your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies. The symbol in the center represents the Om. Okay, can you see the Om right there in the center? She says that each of these insights offers guidance surrounding the lessons you have been gifted. Each provides a means to a deeper understanding of events that transform your life and offer you a rebirth. Okay. I think that's an important piece, because what she's asking us to do is to reflect back, to remember a time in our life where we may have had a traumatic event, and how it affected our bodies. And usually we focus on either the emotional or the physical body when we do that, because that is the one that usually gives us the most how do I want to say this, that we feel it there the most, right? And so what she's asking us to do is to take the time, to take a little time and not to go into the trauma of it, but what did you learn from it? Because this kind of reminded me of hindsight's 2020, right? And when we turn around and look back, and in whatever lesson that we learned from a certain event and how it affects our life today, that's what she is referring to here. So, and that helps us to understand our growth in a deeper way. And this is something else I was considering with this card, is that this is really a good card for Mercury retrograde, because it's a reflection. We're looking back at something that occurred in our past and how that life lesson has affected our current life right now. Right? And she's not asking us to change anything. She's not asking us to redo it. She's asking us to look at it and see how that life lesson, how it affects you today. And it's what she's talking about is the rebirth. She says, trust the universe and your inner guidance to move you through a dangerous passage and into a place of light and rebirth. We can ground the ultimate gifts into the healing of the transformation with the Om. So if you use that sound to tone, you can bring that gift from that life lesson more securely, more into the earth plane here in the present. You know, we've talked about that, how we can ground our experience, our gifts into the earth plane in the fourth or fifth dimension intentionally. And we ground that through our bodies. Yeah. And so that's what this card reminded me of. And remember, this is on the second card, which goes on the left side, that represents the female intuition and feelings. So if you choose to do that reflection of a past event, a past traumatic event, and the life lesson that you learned from it, is to really look at the emotional aspects of it, the feelings about it, and what you learned from that. Yeah. Yep. It's interesting, I think. Because I kind of did that yesterday at the end of the day. I kind of did that yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Maybe it was the day before. my days are so mixed up because, you know, with Paul being so sick, the days are kind of running together. There was a point, I'll just say there was a point where I had to have a little bit of a break and had to go and be by myself for just a little bit. And I took an adult beverage with me, so it must have been in the evening. And I went and sat in the Four Seasons porch. And so that was as close to nature I was going to get at that moment without going out and taking a walk, which I probably should have done, but I didn't. I was in the Four Seasons and I was sitting there listening to the birds and the cicadas. There's a lot of them out. And I was thinking about dealing with the medical world and the life lessons I learned from that from before. And, you know, and so it was a coming together, and it was a reflection. How can I see this from a more expansive point of view, a higher level of understanding of what's unfolding, right? And for me, it's hard for me to do that in the busyness of the day, of that I need to have that quiet moment. It doesn't have to be like an hour. It doesn't even have to be a half hour. It could be, 10 minutes. And it's just to be there in the quiet and say, and talk to my spiritual team and say, could you please show me this in a way that has more clarity, that I understand it from a more expansive view. What's really going on here? What's really happening here? Yeah. So anyway, the two cards that we got today, mark my pages here, is the first card that was drawn was Mandala, and the second one was Himalayan Passage, right? And so with these two cards and the energy of the day, this is what I got from it, and I'll be interested to see what you guys feel about it. Is taking the mandala aspect from that logical, mental thought point of view and using it as a tool to use it to center. Because it reaches all of our bodies, right? And so in our mental mind, we can take the time to get centered and to and tap into the energy of that ancient mandala energy, right? Right. And then what we're doing is on the left-hand side, the Himalayan Passage is about rebirth, is using that time to end the mandala energy, to remember an event, a traumatic event in our life where we learned a life lesson. and focus in on the life lesson and how you're using it today in this time frame. Elise, you're so funny. Well, I'm so glad you're here with us in the chat. She says, hi there. I hear now. I've been working on not so small project, LOL. She's working on something with me. So yeah, that's what she's talking about. All right. So here we are. And with the Himalayan Passage, it's about rebirth, right? And so if we take into consideration and we think about, we feel about it, that life lesson that helped us, that is helping us today. And we can take that gift and ground it to the earth plane in the present moment so that we are really using that wisdom that we gained from that life lesson. That's what I got from these two cards. And I have to tell you that there was when that light bulb moment happened for me, there's actually hope in here too. There's hope in here that because what I'm using right now is a life lesson that I learned a few years ago, and dealing with Paul's illness and Mom's energy force decline. That's just the aging process, and helping the two of them while keeping in mind my own balance and my own health, right? It's a tightrope kind of walk. But what I'm tapping into and using is consciously turning to my connection to Grandmother Earth and Grandfather Sky. And when I'm feeling a little wobbly is like energetically, right? It's like, okay, I tune into grandmothers to help me ground. I tune into grandfather to keep me centered, and also to light my path. And yeah. And this is all happening in Mercury retrograde besides. Yeah, which leads back to communication, right? With the medical world. And what I learned about healing and with my own pneumonia trek years ago. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? The use of mandalas and the Himalayan Passage, which is the rebirth. I think that the essence of the cards today gives us a perspective, an opportunity. Let's put it that way: an opportunity an opportunity to see a life lesson used as a gift, wisdom in the current time. And we get to see that from a higher, more expansive point of view. Yeah, perspective. That's a good word today, perspective. Yeah. And as I'm sitting here, I'm facing west, right? I'm facing west, and I'm also seeing the altar, and on the altar I have a Buddha, and the Buddha is in a mudra pose. It's the teacher pose, and the altar itself sits in the west of the room, and so Buddha is actually looking, which is behind me, which is east, and I'm thinking, and I'm right in the middle of the room, and so there is no coincidence. there's no oh gee, I wonder how, the probability of that happening. And why it was so important for me to come up here today to be with you guys and talk about this card draw on this live stream. Just being here helps me to center, helps me to be grounded, and gives me a point of view as I'm looking at the Buddha, a higher perspective of this, and how can I draw on those life lessons that past, that has given me some wisdom in how I'm working through today. Yeah. So it's good stuff, I think. Hey, Mato. Good to hear. Rochelle, hello, Rochelle. How's Paul? Well, Paul is doing much better. The pain from the pleurisy is managed. Basically, all we can do is get him comfortable and wait for time to pass, and for his body to heal on its own. And so, yeah, right in this moment, he's doing really good because he's comfortable. He's in the recliner. He's watching a movie. He's kind of hummingbird. He's kind of chomping at the bit a little because he's not used to sitting around doing nothing. So he says, and I said, "You're probably working harder than you have in a long time." And he looked at me and he said, "What do you mean?" We were sitting in the emergency room, and I said, "Your body is working really hard to balance and to heal itself. Just because you don't see it on the outside doesn't mean you're not working like heck on the inside." Right. Yeah. And isn't that a good analogy of just even our soul growth? Because so much of it happens on the inside that many people don't even see it on the outside until you're at an extreme point, right? Yeah. That's what I thought. The other thing that is come out of this, and he just said this to me the other day. I don't remember which day it was. He says, you can literally feel when good energy is coming to you, can't you? And I said, yeah, you can. And he said, so there must be a lot of people praying for me right now. And I said, yeah, there are. They are. I said, the sisters are doing ceremony for you. They're praying for you. I said, there are people who are in Star Nations community who don't know you personally, but they know me, and they are sending their prayers for you to regain your health and to have optimal health and to actually have the pain go away, be manageable. And so he was saying that he could actually feel it. Now, that's something that he wouldn't have said a year ago, 5 years ago, certainly not 10 years ago. Yeah, because he's kind of a conservative guy, yeah, for him to share that was pretty insightful, actually. And but there were things that happened to him that he saw while he was in that really that in between place with the high fever that we sat down and talked about, and he didn't quite understand it because he's never really been there. And so he's learning quite a bit from this. And and as I'm looking at the Buddha teacher, maybe it's a possibility that my role in all of this is really more like a guide, answering the questions, making sure he's comfortable, saying, "Do you really think you should do that? That you don't have to empty the dishwasher. That you're supposed to be relaxed. You're supposed to be sitting down and being quiet. Go to sleep." That kind of stuff. Yep. All right, and Stephanie says, "I will share the mandala I'm making via Instagram later today." Yay! Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that. And Rochelle saying Reiki sent his way along with you. Thank you, Rochelle. I appreciate that. Say, listen, if you know of a really good mandala website link, share it here in the comments. For all of us to be able to tap into if we so choose, right? Because there are so many places out there, that are a possibility. And if you've already done your homework, you've done some research, you had some discernment and said, this is a good site. This has really good information. Please share it. We can, be helpful to each other that way, right? And what I can do is I can, I'll go and find, I think I know where they are, the coloring books that I had from Mandala, and I will do a picture of it and share that so you have the author name and the picture of the cover and all that. Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, Stephanie, for doing that for us. I appreciate that. And with that, please remember that anything that we shared today, information-wise or anything really, if it resonated with you, it's great. Grab onto it. Use it. Yeah. If it didn't resonate with you, that's okay. Just let it go. And what I've been saying is that maybe you're the messenger. Maybe you're the messenger. And share the video, the recorded show video. I don't know if we call it a show, with someone else or on your timeline or with a specific person, because maybe you're the messenger. And that would really be helpful to another human being, another soul who might be looking for information about something like this. And the other thing is this is just to be aware, to notice how the energy unfolds for you today in regard to the card information, the essence of those cards, because there is something in that for you, whether you're a direct participant or maybe you're a witness. Either way, you're learning something and you're involved, right? Okay. So I'm going to be doing some promotions for shows, live stream shows this week. So you'll be seeing some more information from me coming to the main fan page and also to the Star Nations Radio Network closed group, which is where most of the active community members kind of hang out. So with that, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Thank you so much for being with me this afternoon. I appreciate it. And I just like hanging out with you guys. So enjoy the rest of your day. And my intention is to see you tomorrow morning with tomorrow's card draw. We'll see how that goes. We might be meeting in the afternoon again. I don't know. But anyway, enjoy your day, and Bama Mina. That means in Potawatomi, until we meet again. Okay? Love you guys.